What if I told you there's a verse where Jesus laughs? Not in joy, not in mockery, but in a way that might completely change how you see him. For centuries, scholars have debated whether Jesus ever truly laughed, and why some ancient texts show him doing exactly that. This isn't the Jesus most people hear about in church. So why was it hidden? To understand this mystery, we need to step back into the early centuries of Christianity. During this time, dozens of Gospels circulated among believers, some familiar, others shocking. Among them is the Gospel of Judas, discovered in Egypt and translated in the early 2000s. In this text, Jesus is described as laughing not at joy, but at his disciples' misunderstanding of God's plan. In one striking passage, the Gospel of Judas says, "When Jesus observed their lack of understanding, he laughed." Imagine that for a moment, Jesus, the teacher, laughing at his followers, not to mock them, but to reveal how little they truly grasped. This is not the calm, sorrowful Messiah most are used to. It paints him as both divine and deeply mysterious. But here is the twist. This verse never made it into the Bible most of us read today. Why? Because when church leaders in the 4th century decided which books would form the canon, writings like the Gospel of Judas were considered too radical, too different. They feared these texts might confuse believers. So, they were banned, hidden, and eventually buried until archaeologists uncovered them centuries later. Now, let's contrast this with the canonical Bible. In Luke 6:21, Jesus does say, "Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh." This is a promise of joy and restoration, but it's not the same as him laughing himself. The idea of Jesus laughing in Scripture feels strange to many because the Gospel writers emphasized his suffering, his compassion, and his sacrifice, rarely his humor. So why is Jesus' laughter so controversial? Because it raises deeper questions about his humanity and his divinity. Was he someone who smiled, laughed, and even teased his disciples? Or was that image deliberately suppressed to preserve a more solemn picture of Christ? These hidden texts force us to ask uncomfortable questions about what was left out of the Bible and why.